Okie dokie. Let's see. Are we on live? How am I going to make this more? Okay, yeah, I think we're live.
I've got a little red box saying live counting at me here, so I imagine.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's up in the top. I can see it.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, everyone.
All right, cool.
Do you want me to run things, mate?
You can. It doesn't have to be me leading the bloody thing. Okay, good. Good evening, sensei. Hi, everyone. Hi. Good evening, Nigel. Good to see you. All right. So now we have Blake Bennett, sensei, Dr. Blake Bennett. You are specialized in. I have to stop this lady talking. Bloody hell. There we go. We're gonna have to. You're specialized in coaching, sports coaching.
That's right, mate. Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Sport coaching.
Coaching and sport leadership? Yes.
Leadership's definitely part of it. I guess if you wanted to put a fancy word on what I do here, it would be sport pedagogy.
Oh, I don't know, man.
Pedagogy is about how to teach, how we teach, how we learn, that sort of stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah, but in particular, my thing is not so much the classroom; it's more about the sports context. So whatever that means for people, yeah. So, but for me, obviously, it's in the dojo.
Right. And so you have PhD, and you studied Kendo at Osaka Taiku Daigaku, which is one of the very strongest and very famous Kendo University in Japan. And can you tell me about that? I don't really remember the English name for the Daitai, man.
The Osaka University of Health and Sports Sciences.
Okay.
So yeah,
that sounds cool.
Tie-dye is fine, man. Yeah, it was definitely definitely a strong kendo club when I was there. I'm not quite sure about now, mate. I've left a big hole. No. Yeah, tie-dye with massive assistance of my older and uglier brother, Alex Bennett.
Yeah, that guy. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I met him somewhere, right?
Yeah. In passing, he set me up at tie-dye back in 2008, I think it was. It's a while ago now. And I did my master's degree at tie-dye. They had a string of successes before and after there. You know, obviously I had nothing to do with the performance of the students, but it was really amazing to be part of an environment where, you know, we're talking about the highest level in the university circuit at that point, you know. And I think, you know, it's obvious that the coaching or the leadership of the dojo at that point, up until that point and beyond, with a man named Sakudo Masao.
Sakudo Sensei is very famous.
Sensei.
Yeah.
And also Kanzaki Hiroshi Sensei, both eighth dance, and both absolutely terrifying gentlemen, you know, and I mean that in both ways, you know. They're when they stood there in front of you with their shinai in your throat and you're trying to do something, it's absolutely exhausting and terrifying. But at the same time, when you get to spend time with these guys outside of the dojo or outside of training, they're absolutely incredible people. So I think that was a really big part of my overall experience, and obviously the experience of the students as well. So they trained bloody hard, mate. We used to do, and I can only speak from the time that I was there, but you know, at that time we would do up to 10 trainings a week. Which was if I remember correctly, we would do Asarin morning training from 7 3 days a week, and then leading up to a competition, we would do Saturday and Sunday as well. Usually Sunday would have been a shiai with a neighboring university, Kansai University or Osaka University or whatever the case may be. They would come in, do shiai, do a bit of jigeko, a little bit of kakari geko, and then they would go out and get pissed. But not me, mate. I went back, hit the books. I was studying really hard. But my master's at that time was on the difference, I guess, between definitions of violence and aggression and bullying in comparison to, or the difference with that high level of training at that level of competition, right? So it was a difficult topic to take on for a lot of reasons, but one of the main reasons I found people were a little bit cagey, a little bit uncertain to talk to me about the differences, and I'm coming at it with a Western brain, a Western mind. I'm reading the research and literature from American scholars and UK scholars in psychology, and we're talking about what is bullying, what is aggression, what is violence. Right. And then you talk to people who, like you and me, and your viewers who know, we know that Kendo's not, when we're giving someone a bit of kakari geko, there's a bunch of good intentions in there for the most part. Right. But then when you look at this in these environments where there's that joge kanke, there's the senpai kohai, that seniority. Yeah. And it's a little bit of it's a little bit of good fun and a little bit of come on, you little bugger, and pushing around. But it's at that point where those things go a little bit over that I was interested in. And they're a really sensitive sort of topic, because it's like, you don't understand. I used to go to high school with this kid, and I'm just he's like my little brother sort of thing. So, well, that's cool. And I totally get it, man, because my older brother used to make me cry.
Oh, yeah. I have seen that a lot.
Well, actually, don't forget that you were you
gotta bring that up, huh?
Pretty. Hey, but I turned out all right, It's all right. So that was an amazing experience. I wrote about that sort of like my findings, I guess, in a few Kendo World articles, which was cool. And it's probably time to talk to Alec about how I could dust those off and bring them back to light. I think there's still a little bit of a lot of merit in keeping that conversation going, because more and more, I don't know what it's like in other parts of the world. Well, I have an understanding of some parts of the world, but currently my research is a little bit more on what they call child safeguarding policies and procedures in sport more generally. And I'm based in New Zealand at the moment at the University of Auckland, and one of the things that we're noticing in the sports sector more generally in New Zealand is this shifting of what was once traditional approaches to leading and teaching children in sport, and we're starting to get a little bit more aware of what those traditional practices, the ways of teaching, or the things that we say, or the behaviors that we show, and the impact that has on young kids in the sporting experience, right? So if I was to put it in a kendo context, right, to make it a little bit more relevant to this conversation, if you think about kakari geko, back in the pre-pandemic training, a good sort of hard kakari geko session, you and I know, we walk off the floor and we think, oh man, that was hard, but I'm glad that I did it. Every moment leading up to that sucks. You're in the car driving to training thinking, oh God, it's going to be hard, man. It's my birthday. Hiro Sensei is going to give me an absolute, you know.
I don't recall that, mate.
And he's going to yell at me, fall down 7 times, get up 8 times. And I'm going to say, hi.
Yeah, that was your brother.
No, right. Yeah. But the thing is that are we able, not are we able to, but, you know, where do we draw a line with that these days? Because everybody in the dojo, everyone wearing a man holding a shinai gets it. We understand that there's no bad blood between you and me. I'm the kohai, you're the sensei, senpai. There's no bad blood. You love me, I love you. You're helping me to get better at Kendo. But what does my mum think? You know?
Yeah.
And it's that. And so my research is about the importance of, that's right, the importance of having these child safeguarding conversations. But my research is really looking into the context within those moments and sort of saying, well, look, I'm a volunteer, or you're a volunteer coach. We're volunteers here. I have this practice that I was brought up with, that I've seen other senpai and other sensei do, and we have an assumption that doing hard kakari geko makes us better at Kendo. Right? I'm not saying that that's true or false. It's just what we believe. Typically. And if we have that assumption and we keep doing that sort of training, how does policy and more sort of broad society understandings of what's okay when we're teaching children in sport, those things aren't quite aligned yet. And I think when you talk about what that means for Kendo training, I think we have to have a really deep conversation about that. And it's a little bit hard because Kendo especially isn't on the radar of a lot of government agencies that deal with legislation in sport, right? Kendo, what's that? Yeah. But I think one thing that's really important to keep in mind is going back to that word we used before here, or pedagogy. There's something that we're starting to see in the broader sports world now that they're calling defensive pedagogy. And what that means is that coaches, particularly volunteer coaches, start to get a little bit defensive on what they do. And one of the things that we're noticing in the research in, for example, the UK, and especially in the US where you are, is defensive pedagogies when it comes to touching children. And obviously, I mean in the most wholesome sense. If you were to touch little Billy or little Janie on the arm and say, okay, you need just to stretch your elbow out a little bit here. Oh, that's right. Now think about, you know, you've got kote on, they're wearing keikogi, do, tare, all that sort of stuff. So there's not really any scope for you to be doing bad things there. You know, it's hard to be a baddie when you've got big bloody boxing gloves on, right? But what this means is in other sports like swimming or judo or aikido or you know, any other number of sports, even rugby, for example, touching is a necessary part of our coaching. But from the external point of view, it can be problematic. People can say, oh, I don't think it's necessary to touch the person on the arm there. Like, why is Blake continuing to touch little Billy on the arm? That's, I don't think, you know, and then so there's this misunderstanding of what the policy says with what we're doing as coaches. And I think what's, you know, in Kendo, like I said, touch is one thing because we've got lots of equipment. In swimming or judo, you know, there's not much equipment. And it's very obvious that there's body touching body, older generations touching younger generations. And so we get, as coaches, we're seeing people starting to get a little bit worried and a little bit defensive. And so I'm starting to look at what that means. How do we change our coaching, or how do we help people understand that, hey, I'm not a baddie here, I'm trying to help the kid learn, but finding a middle ground. Okay, so maybe that's not the right way to do it, you know? So it's really complicated, mate. But in terms of Kendo, to bring the conversation back to what's going on with Kendo, when we talk about hard physical stuff like kakari geko, same thing applies. Is it defensive to say, oh, no, I won't be motodachi because I don't want to get in trouble for pushing too hard, or you know, hitting the kid or not hitting, but pushing the kid through with the shinai or something like that. And this is a real difference because we often, and I'm a big advocate for this to change, to be honest with you, mate. but we often look at Japan. This is in the outside of, you know, the rest of the world, Kendo world. We look to Japan and how things tend to be done in Japan. Japan's a successful Kendo nation. We've got little ones right up to Yodas, you know. So what can we do to copy that or emulate that and be a strong Kendo nation as well? The problem with looking to Japan for all of the answers is that it's a totally different coaching context. It's a totally different experience, a different culture. We know this. So for me to look to Japan and the way that Miyazaki sensei would teach you when you were a kid and the way that you taught me when I was a kid, if I was to pass that on, there's a yeah, exactly. And it's a changing thing because the legislation is changing quicker than our assumptions on what is the right way. And or when I say the right way, that's subjective, right? We will have different. What I'm saying is that we need to sort of consider what needs to happen in our own context, our own culture, our own legal environment, I guess. So yeah, difficult conversations, mate.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of things are changing now. You know, when I was a kid, when you were a kid, blah, 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 and in different places now. Now we have the common change all over the world, this coronavirus, and then we cannot see each other. And now you sent me this article about your remote coaching. You know, and a lot of people now, I'm sure soon, a lot of people are going to join Alex Bennett Sensei's virtual Keiko. Now, now, probably some of, by the way, listeners or viewers, we are more than welcome to write questions about coaching and learning through remote class, remote Keiko Kai, or whatever it is. So I want to ask Blake, Sensei, what we should be. How many of you guys are actually Sensei here? I don't know if you guys are interested in coaching or interested. I'm interested in coaching, but I want to know what you. Are you guys all students? Maybe. I don't know. Let's talk about teaching. What should be a person as a coach? Can you see the?
No, I can't see anything. No.
How's that?
Oh, here we go. What should validate a person as a coach? Sensei.
What do you think?
Yeah. It's a good question. The thing is that there's always a little bit of a question around this. I think outside of Japan, you know, what grade do you start teaching in the dojo? You know, is in our federation in New Zealand? I don't think there's any hard, fast rule, and I think it comes down to the dojo. But generally speaking, if you become sandan, third dan, there's an expectation that you start to to teach.
In the US, like fourth dan is considered as sensei. Downwards. In typical fashion, I think I love to challenge that, because the problem that I have with that is that your sandan, your yondan, you have a certain technical understanding, or you've been able to demonstrate that in a very short period of time, 60 seconds or 90 seconds on the floor in front of your superiors. You're a third dan, you're fourth dan now. The problem that I have with that, and that we should all have with that, to be honest, if I can be a little bit controversial, is that doesn't mean much when it comes to the facilitation of other people's learning, right? Okay. So what I mean by that is that just because you know how to strike men, or that you can do suriage, kote, or whatever the case may be, it doesn't mean that you have the appropriate set of skills to pass that knowledge on to somebody older than you, someone the same age as you, to a child, whether there's
other cultural things that you need to consider, whether there's gender things that you need to consider. It depends on your context. So going back to the question, what validates someone, or what should validate someone as being a sensei or a coach? I think that we need, in the Kendo world especially, we need to revisit what we do in that coaching space. So yes, you've got a technical understanding. Excellent. That's absolutely paramount to the development of the art. But a huge piece of that that's missing is our coach education. And I know that some people get a little bit upset when I say coach. We're not coaches. It's not a sport. It's a budo. I get it. And I don't think that semantics is where we should be getting caught up here. So let me just say sensei, right? We need sensei education. What does it mean for someone to learn? How do people learn best? How should we facilitate that? What is our role as an instructor, as a sensei in the dojo? Is it to look cool and buy stuff from Shogun Kendo-Guide? Yes. But it's also about being mindful of all sorts of other things that play into people's learning and that quality of experience that they get when they come to our dojo. Because that's what's going to keep them coming back. That's what's going to keep us growing the art in our respective cities, countries, and then globally outside of Japan. So I think that, my goal, my absolute dream here would be to have a conversation with the FIK, for example. I'm going to start small, but to, one day, and say, okay, what does sensei education look like in Kendo? We've all got, we're clear as we could be on what's required for Shodan, Nidan, Sandan, so on, so on, so on. I'm being facetious. Nobody really knows what it takes to get to the next grade, but we can be much more deliberate with our education of the people who teach Kendo as they go up the grades.
Yeah. So I agree. Like you have, let's say, I have six dan. But doesn't mean I'm a great teacher, but, I am. I can be a great teacher, but so that it's really teaching someone needs skills. And when I went to New Zealand, I didn't know how to teach, right? And I only know how to show Kendo. And when I started started teaching beginners, the beginners all quit. That's the first time I took the class for beginners, and they quit because I didn't know how to teach in Japanese way. I only know Japanese way to teach, but they didn't understand that. They didn't like it. They just quit. So it doesn't. I'm totally agree with you. Dan doesn't mean anything. We can call them sensei, but doesn't mean they can be a good coach. So, I mean, if you're a shodan, a lot of like when we back in New Zealand when I was there, I was only fourth dan too, and then I had to be in charge of Kendo Club, and I left it to you when I left New Zealand.
Thanks, man. 100%, man. And there's that comment up there by Nicholas there that to become a great coach can depend on the situation, and it doesn't, just having that grade doesn't necessarily mean that you're a good coach. 100%. And it's again, we talk about assumptions, those traditional assumptions that we have. I'm going to be really careful that when I say this, but to be honest, just because you have 6th, 7th, 8th done doesn't necessarily mean that you're a good coach either. And what makes a good coach? I think there's a number of things that go into that, but one of them that's really, really key that we always have to remember, and it doesn't matter if we're face to face in the flesh or online. It's the same with your work, your day-to-day work with Kendo-Guide and also it's a quality of experience, right? So, how do we get our members experiencing a quality learning environment? What is it? That's where we need to be focusing, quality. And as all of your viewers would know, and you and I as well, it depends. You know, it's so dependent on the people that you have in front of you, the content that you're teaching, you know, the skill set that you have. Are you, you know, the type of person that you are? Are you an introvert? Are you an extrovert? You know, that you don't have to be an extroverted person to be a good coach, not at all. But the way that you leverage off your own abilities, your own personalities, those are really important to understand, so that you can teach in an authentic way, and therefore the learner starts to go, oh, I feel a really good level of rapport or trust with Blake Sensei, and I want to come back. You know, he really loves his kendo. I can tell that, and that makes me want to learn more. You know what I mean? Whereas if I sort of sit back and go, wow, you know what, I'm this grade and I'm that grade and I've got this and that and all the rest of it, dude, I don't care. You know, you pushed me around and you didn't explain what was going on. Like I don't, what, you know, bugger you, I'm going next door. But you know, you said before, Hiro, that when you first came to New Zealand back in the 90s and you started teaching the club, people would leave. You know, after you handed me the torch, I can't count how many times the club nearly fell apart because I was working it out, and I just got it wrong. I just got it completely wrong. And it's you know, I was quite young at that time, as you know. Even growing up and going through all this tertiary education on what it means to coach and all the rest of it, I still stuffed it up, man, and the club nearly fell apart. And it's just one of those things, you know. We get it wrong, and I think that what's key, you know, if anyone's sort of looking for some tangible takeaways, I think what's key, as a starting point, is to work towards being a reflective coach or sensei. And what I mean by that is looking to your learners, to your club mates, the people that you're working with, to give you feedback. And it's a real contradiction, man. And I learned this, and I'm still learning this. I've got to be honest, I'm still learning this. What happens, in my observation, is that what happens when we start to go up in rank, and we've been in the dojo for a long time, with that, you know, that culmination of time and experience, sometimes, not all of us, but sometimes ego starts to rise as well. And the more pride and the more ego that we wrap in with our teaching or with our you know, persona, the more difficult it is for us to get better, right? We block the opportunity to get feedback, to say, hey, Blake, look, you know, I really appreciate what you're doing. I know you're working really hard. I know you're a volunteer, and I know you think you know a few things, but you really need to listen to me on this one. My kid came home the other day. He was a little bit upset. He wasn't sure why you growled at him, or why you gave him kakariak, or you know, my daughter came back and she was really disappointed that you didn't congratulate her for getting a B+ in her math test the other day. And like, oh my God, is that really my job? And the thing is, you know, if that's what it takes for you to give quality learning experiences and really make your members love the club, love the kendo experience that you provide, we have to look at them as more than just members wearing bogu. They're people. And what is it that we do, how we interact with people doesn't change just because we're wearing bogu. We're still people, and people have opinions about their experience. People have thoughts and feelings about the experience that we give them. And so it's really important that at any opportunity, we get that feedback on what we're doing and the experience that we're providing. And look, I get it, man. There's going to be people that take the piss a little bit and say, oh, you know, you could be doing that. It's totally fine. You're going to get all sorts of feedback, and it's our job to go, okay, cool. I hear this. I'm going to park that. This is really important. And if I'm really, really, truly honest with myself, I think, yeah, that's probably true. I probably do talk a little bit too much in between kotai, or whatever the case may be. We've got to have kind of a balance between a thick skin and a willingness to take on things and get better.
Yeah, totally agree, man. I like. There's no show. Says, do you recommend? Do you have any recommendation on coaching material? I think it's a great. If you have, you have to write a book, and you can say, "Oh,
yeah, sound like my brother, man."
Yeah, any
only if your viewers promise to buy my books. Hey, buy my books.
There you
go. Recommendations on coaching material. Absolutely. I think it's a really good question. I think currently, the obvious go-to here would be, what you do, Hiro, with Kendo-Guide and what Alec does with Kendo World. And there's a lot of other stuff out there. If you look at what Andy Fisher does, there's heaps of stuff out there when it comes to Kendo specific stuff. And that's absolutely brilliant. Like our community, our global community is getting more sophisticated by the week, by the day. And that's brilliant. And I think that we really don't have a shortage of information on what is Kendo, right? What is Menuchi? What is Koteuchi? How do we do Kirikaishi? How do we stand? What is correct Chakuso? All that sort of stuff. Kendo content is abundant. It's everywhere. If you look for it, you will find it. But like I said before, that's not the big problem. That's just half of the conversation. What we're absolutely totally missing is how to transfer that information. How do we get that information effectively across to our learners? And I think that in absence of that in a Kendo context, yes, I'm working on it. I'll get to it as soon as I can. Look at what other coaching resources are available in other sports, right? Oh, Kendo's not a sport. Doesn't matter. We're talking about the facilitation of learning in a physical context, right? So look at if you Google search for your local coaching manual of your local swimming federation or your local netball or basketball federation, you'll see that other sports orgs are starting to take this on. And I can't really speak authoritatively about what's going on in other countries. I know, for example, in New Zealand, there's a massive push to get coaches of all sports and all arts together in the room to say, hey, forget about the content, the sport specific, the martial arts specific content. What are the soft skills of being a coach, being a teacher, being an instructor that are common across all of our sports? So that's the piece that I think is really missing in Kendo at the moment, and that's acknowledging what's out there. Like I don't want to discourage what people are actually doing, but when we talk about how to coach, those are the things that I think we're lacking, or that we don't look for as much. How do we do Kirikaishi? Well, go and ask Ima Fuji Sensei. He'll show you, man. How do we teach a shy 10-year-old kid how to do hase, kiai, in a much more confident way? And hang on a minute, is that actually necessary? You know what I mean? Like he's turning up, he's doing his best, given, it's not my best. Like I can make a hell of a lot of noise, but he's a little bit shy. Are we happy that he's there? Are we okay with that? And that becomes a pedagogical, that becomes a being comfortable with whether the quality of the learning experience is good for him in that moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I want to add some example about that. In old days, when I was a kid, my senpai, he was new back then. He came I think he was 12 or something, and he cried. Not 12. He's probably 10. He cried. He didn't want to come to the dojo, and but okay, and then the Tsurumaru sensei back then was the master, the late Tsurumaru. He just go, okay, that's okay. If you don't want to do kendo, that's okay. Just stay here right beside me, and okay, you can just give me a massage on my shoulders. Just let him stay at the dojo, and then didn't tell him off or anything. Then you know what? He became a sensei. At the very end of the, so you never know, you never know, like I think the kendo now, the problem, I don't know if I should talk, maybe you should be talking.
No.
Kendo, we have the traditional way of teaching, and we export it from Japan, the traditional teaching. We know what to do in kendo, but like you said, we don't know how to teach people, humans. We know it's kendo. Okay, this is we do this. Okay, we have to be loud. If you come to the dojo, this and this and this. That's fine. It's something rules it should be followed. But like you said, he's here and trying to learn. But if you just start yelling at him, he's not gonna come. We're just we have to give him opportunity to be there. So to kids, I don't know if it's good or bad. I don't know. I got older, maybe I got softer. But if they don't want to do it, I said, no, don't do it. If you don't feel like it, don't do it. I mean, if you want to do it, if you put men on, if you're feeling you're going to do it, you got to do it.
Yeah.
If you don't do it, that's fine. Just go over there and watch.
Yeah, that's right. And I think you're absolutely right. And Tsurumaru sensei, I have a memory of him when I was, I guess, 11 or 12. And I remember during a Shubukan training with kids everywhere back in the heyday, in the good old days. Tsurumaru sensei, this ninth dan, he just sat there watching us, and it was terrifying. Yeah. But he grabbed his shinai from his little perch, on the tatami mats up above. Yeah. And he grabbed his shinai and he held Shudan, and he started doing a little bit of, mucking around with one of the kids in the line. And it's sort of, I remember it because all of a sudden he became a human. You know what I mean by that? And it sounds a little bit esoteric, but he became a person, just a normal guy. And I remember leaving the dojo that day, and he was wearing the New Zealand All Blacks hat that I gave him. Yeah. And he didn't have to do that, but I think he wanted to show me that he acknowledged my existence in the dojo that day, which was really, I still remember it, man. It was, oh God, I don't even know how many years ago. What am I, like 20? I'm 25 now, so. Yeah, you don't know in life, you can't swear. But the thing is, my point is that he became human. He was authentic. He was a real, he wasn't some holier than thou sort of a guy. He for me, he made an effort to come across as just a friendly chap. And Nicholas is asking, the correct mindset for a teacher, and we're talking about what it is, to how do we provide that quality experience for people. I think it's to be authentic, be yourself, be open to getting comments back. We provide all this information. Hey, this is what you need to do to get better. You need to have better footwork. You need this to have better kihon. Hey, you're the one receiving this information. How can I do better? And it's not, it's not an opportunity to be made, for people to make you feel bad. People won't. They appreciate what we're doing. They should, definitely, because most of us, 99% of us, are volunteers, right? But to be vulnerable and to be okay with being vulnerable is absolute, in my opinion, Nicholas, is an absolute key step to being a better, or becoming a better teacher, or to have the correct mindset, as you say. Because being vulnerable to people's feedback and to saying, okay, how can I be better? How can I be better? I've got third dan or fourth dan or whatever. I'm a sensei now in my club, in the eyes of the Federation. It doesn't stop here. You know, we know that. We say that. We tell our members that. It doesn't stop. It's a lifelong journey.
Right.
Okay, we'll put the mirror back on ourselves and say, right, how do I do better? And that information doesn't have to come from our seniors. It doesn't have to come from the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th dan. It should be coming from the beginner all the way through, because the beginner can't give you feedback on the correct way to do kirikaishi, and that's not what we're asking. Saying, how did you enjoy today? What we did this at the beginning of training, and then I moved on to this, and we finished with this. Which part did you really like? Which part did you really learn something from? And hey, what can I do better next time? Let me know. Just give me one thing. You guys can talk about it as a group, and you know, write it down anonymously if it makes you feel better. If you're a little bit worried about the power balance in the dojo, write it down and let me know. And I think just going back to something you said before, Hiro, I can't remember the exact words you used, but to set expectations for our members is a really important thing. We do that inherently anyway. When we start training, we say, right, this is what we're going to do today. We're going to do X, Y, and Z. And it's really good practice at the end to say, we did this, X, Y, and Z. What did you learn? What did you learn? What did you learn? That's in the content space, right? When we're asking people to give us feedback on how we're doing as a coach or as a sensei, it's important to give people some parameters, some expectations as well, I think. Say, look, what did I do well? What could I improve on? You know, if you give people a framework to give you feedback, it becomes a lot easier for them to give you feedback and not worry that they're going to upset you or something like that. But it's also a little bit easier to take it. You know, what did I do well? We all like to be told what we did well. It's a human thing. And it doesn't matter if you're bloody 9th dan or 9th Q. You know, if you get a pat on the back, you feel good. And the same goes for us as coaches. So sometimes I've found, especially with my work at the university, some people aren't good at giving feedback because often we're not given the opportunity to do so, right? So, you know, and we're probably living in a culture these days where it's easy to just provide negative feedback. That's sucked, thumbs down. Yeah. And people aren't good at it. And that's fine. It's part of the learning experience. How can I do better? So there's a reciprocal thing here, eh? I'm saying to you, hey, Hiro, before you strike man, you might want to turn your left hip in a little bit because I can see your left foot out, whatever. But what you're doing really well when you do that, man, you've got some serious power through your lower body. So that's fantastic. And I think if you can just twist your hip in, you'll be striking men from bloody 2 blocks away. Awesome job, man. Pat on the back. Go for it. You feel good. You've got some information on what you need to do next. And if we can help our learners or our students or our members to frame their feedback in a similar way, we're all people. And it helps us to be vulnerable and get that information when we set those expectations for people. It's really simple. What did I do well? What can I improve on? Not what am I bad at? What can I improve on? Right? What did I do well and what can I improve on? It's a great way to frame up critique or criticism in a positive, constructive way. You know what I mean? If you tell a really good example, man, and I use this in back down in Christchurch for a while. If you tell, if everyone can do this, just humor me, right? Hiro, I think we've done this before actually, mate, but humor me. Whatever you do right now, Hiro, don't think about a pink elephant. Don't think about a pink elephant. Close your eyes, please. Close your eyes. Don't think about a pink elephant. Think about anything else, but not a pink elephant. Come back to the room. What are you thinking about?
Pink elephant, man.
A dancing pink elephant, probably, right? He's got an umbrella and everything. What we do all the time is we say, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. You know, don't overextend your arm or, you know, don't turn around too quickly after the strike or whatever the thing is. If we tell people don't do, And then 5 minutes later, we go, why am I repeating myself? Are these people stupid? Are they not listening to me? Do they not like me? Or whatever the thought train is after that. But we're telling people don't do something. People are just gonna, that's the last thing they were told.
Yeah.
And so if we can start to reframe things, so how do you do that? How do you give someone feedback without saying don't do? And my go-to all the time is to replace that with the positive image, with the thing that we want them to be doing. So instead of saying don't think about a pink elephant, hey, Hiro, next time try thinking about a blue elephant. And so the last 2 words that I said to you, blue elephant, that's what's stuck in your mind, not pink elephant, but blue elephant.
This
you know
is
what
important,
I mean?
guys. Yeah.
And so it's a really simple little trick, little hack, I guess you could say, to start to frame our feedback, both going towards our learners, but also the expectations when we ask them to give us feedback, is to say, hey, this is what you did well. I really, really like the way that you structured training today. We went straight into Jigeko, and then we broke it down into shorter bouts, and it was really, really cool because I got a chance to think about this. And what you could improve on or do differently next time was just make the warm up a little bit longer because I felt a bit cold when I got into it, or whatever it was. You know what I mean? As opposed to, don't go straight into Jigeko. I was freezing cold. I couldn't move my body. So there's a real difference in the attitude. And the thing is that we just have to accept that people aren't used to this yet. And when we ask them questions, we ask them for feedback, they're going to go, what? What? No, that's not my job. And it's just going to take time to break those walls down, and help people to help you. And to go back to that question, what's the mindset? It's being vulnerable. It's being okay with taking that feedback, man. I passed my my last grading at the Worlds back in 2015 or something like that. And the moment that I got it, I was like, whew, I squeaked through, man. I don't know if I should have got that. Yeah. And knowing that I've got a long way to go to actually authentically believe that I should have that grade. And the same goes for my coaching as well. And it's really hard. It's really, really confronting because, Christ, I've got a PhD in coaching, man. I'm the expert. It's just rubbish. There's so much more to learn. We know that. We talk about that with our members. You've got short on, pat on the back, man. You work so hard. Well done. This is where the journey begins. And it's the same with our coaching. You've got your 4th done. You're now a sensei in the thing. Here we go. This is the journey. You don't know everything you need to know yet. You can't. None of us can. And so being vulnerable and open to the learning and our technical stuff, we're okay with that. We should be the same for our coaching ability as well.
Right. Yeah. So it's very, yeah. I hope my students aren't listening to this.
You got to be vulnerable, man. You got to be vulnerable.
Who are here? No, Brian is here.
Brian, how are you, mate?
And I thought I saw Ian here. Well, anyway, I don't know how many of you are going to virtual Keiko today, and I don't know how many. Maybe one more question that you can show. You can't really see, can you?
Well, I've got a question in front of me here, mate. From it's a username, but anyway, it says, "Do you think that the values of the student reflects the values of the sensei? Should a Kendo sensei teach based on these values?" They're actually part of. I mean, we talk about values in coaching. Yeah. How much time have we got? And again, this is just my own humble opinion. I think that one of the words in here is the romantic side of Kendo, and I think when we talk about the romantic values that come with Kendo, they're very much a Japanese sort of the samurai bushy sort of a thing, which is brilliant. Absolutely love it. I mean, I started Kendo when I was 9. I'm 37 now, so for most of my life, I've been raised in this understanding of what is a correct way to be. What are the values? And that was your influence, Hiro. obviously my brother's influence as well. Two big hitters in the kendo world, and this is how it turned out.
Great.
Yeah, well, ask my wife, man. But the thing is, these romantic ideals, I think that it's what brings a lot of people to the dojo to begin with, right? And that's brilliant. That's really, really good. And there's nothing, you know, there's nothing bad that can necessarily come from that if we're really true and authentic to those values. But I think what's important is that we also consider, now this is just think about it sort of stuff, right? What are the values that are important in our own cultural context, right? What are the values and virtues that we as a coach, you know, with our own sort of personal experiences behind us, we as a dojo in this city, in this country, within this broader cultural context, what are the values that we hold dear as well? And I think that those things don't have to compete at all. You know, the Japanese romantic values of Bushido, Samurai, they don't have to compete with our own cultural context. But this piece sometimes, at least based on my observations, gets forgotten about because we champion the Japanese thought system. And again, it's not a bad thing. They're brilliant. They're absolutely, my whole life has been built around, you know, these ideas of nana korobi yaoki, fall down 7 times, get up 8. You know, it's absolutely fundamental to the work that I do and you know, what I'm able to achieve. But we have to remember that we're teaching people, whether they're Japanese or not, we're teaching people who are living and growing up and being educated in the systems in our own countries, and therefore the value systems that they get taught at school, you know, in their own family bubbles and all that sort of stuff, they're really relevant as well. And when we're trying to provide a quality experience to people, we need to be mindful of what cultural, I guess, capital and things that they bring to the dojo as well. That's their identity. It's our identity too. And so to infuse those things is really important to provide a quality of experience, you know, because they're New Zealanders, they're Australians, they're Americans. There's a certain cultural understanding that they bring. And I think trying to merge those things is an important way forward, because basically, mate, and I'm speaking from my point of view as a New Zealand national team coach, the men's coach, my big philosophy at the moment, my big push is to stop doing Japanese kendo. We are not Japanese. We have a huge array of ethnicities in the team. We have Korean, Pakeha, like European, New Zealanders, Māori, you know, a massive range. But we aren't Japanese born and bred kendo players. We don't train in Japan. We don't have the same philosophies that we bring, especially the coaches, obviously. So how do we start to do New Zealand kendo? And I think there's a number of countries around the world that have done that really well. And at the risk of offending anyone, you know, Korea has done an excellent job of creating Korean-style kendo, right? And it's bloody hard to fight,
right?
You know, the Americans have done a fabulous job of owning it and turning it into their own thing. The Italians did the same. There'll be a number of others. But the countries that are still developing in that space because we haven't got perhaps the membership or the money behind it or the history behind it or whatever the reason, we're still trying to emulate the training patterns and approaches of the Japanese. And I think that that's a mistake. At that high performance level, we need to figure out what it is that kendo is for us. You know, what is Kiwi kendo? You know what I mean? So there we have an example. Why am I talking about this? We have an example of infusing Kiwi values, New Zealand values, with a Japanese understanding as well. And they don't have to be polar opposites. We're trying to infuse those. The New Zealand style of or understanding of pedagogy and sports science and sports psychology, nutrition, but also Japanese understandings of what is samurai or Bushido understandings of what is baggy, what is correct, what is respect, all those sorts of things. You know what I mean? But we're keeping it as culturally relevant to our athletes as possible.
Right. Yeah, I know my students are here, and probably they remember once I told them that I'm not teaching Kendo to make you guys Japanese.
Yeah.
So if you don't like the teaching, and that's fine. If you think they're useful for you, take it. And so it's really, like we talk about this style, Japanese Kendo style, Kiwi Kendo style. I'm totally agree. We, like, if I teach, one sensei teaches, like, say 10 students, they do Kendo differently.
Yeah.
They don't do Kendo exactly what they do, but one teacher does. Of course, they try to copy him, right, or her, but it doesn't mean you can be that person.
Yeah.
They have their own understanding, different body size, so they can kind of adjust whatever they learned to themselves. I think that's very important. And of course, thinking as well. I think it's a great point that, history, Japanese Bushido and all, that's great. But, unless you want to become Japanese, probably. Japanese people don't act like a samurai anymore, do they, Blake?
No, certainly not. It's definitely, as it's definitely romanticized, right? And that's there's something to keep in mind. It's a draw card. It brings people into our clubs, and we do need to maintain it for the I guess the essence of what we do. Understanding its origins and things like that. But at the same time, and I'm not for a moment suggesting sportifying anything. That's another conversation altogether. But understanding the cultural, I guess, context of where we're coaching and the people that we're coaching, teaching, instructing, it's a really important part of their experience. So therefore, we need to really consider how it's relevant to them and how it's not relevant to them, right? And I think that's key for the quality of experience. Yeah.
Right. So it's like Kendo is Japanese culture. It has cultural values and cultural history, and that's good. And then at the same time, a lot of people want to learn, physical side of, techniques, side techniques, and blah, blah, blah. Of course, if you have more techniques, you can enjoy Kendo itself. And also, it's easier to understand, what being taught. Because I'm sure you realize as you grow physically and mentally, you kind of start understanding, oh, that's what I meant.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think it's really the important part here, probably coaching, is to keep students how to give, like you said, give quality learning experience. I think that's really the key. And of course, we do need how to do it too. And I'm sure a lot of people are living for virtual Kendo.
Yes, go to training.
We just start drinking beer here.
Look, I just to set up a next step, for example, if viewers are keen to know more, we started out today, I think, with the intention to talk about online, and then I took it in a totally different tangent.
Okay, man.
But if people are interested to know more or sort of set up some questions, we could do a sort of a semi-regular thing or a regular thing for a couple of weeks.
Blake, of course, it's very important. Like, if I say something, of course, my students go, yes, hi, right? So they don't point out, I didn't say anything. You can say whatever you want because you're sensei. So, and then we're getting old and stuff, they just go, they don't want to mess with me. So they listen to me very well. But the things like, don't do it, don't do that. When I heard that from you, I stopped saying it as much. Because you're right, absolutely right. If you say don't do certain things, that that will stick in your head.
Yeah.
That's true. We need that kind of instructions because I'm sure a lot of people here have experience like Kendo should be strict. Kendo training should be hard. I agree. It's training. We're not having a good time. Well, I don't know.
It's not a tea party, yeah.
It's not like having. So it's training should be hard, but like you talked about violence. Between tough training and violent training, how can we do that?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't have that kind of experience, like training hard and that.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing, maybe they didn't kill anyone, but in Japan, I have to say that in Japan, people die because of that as well.
Yeah.
Because of so-called hard training, right?
Mm.
And bullying too. In Kendo training, people die because they are bullied. Not totally Kendo teachings. We don't teach to kill people.
It's part of the Kendo. It's part of Kendo culture. In not to bully, but to be structured around a hierarchical system, right? That senpai, kohai, whatever. And I think that within that sort of structure, there's opportunity for all of us to grow. Like if we talked about before about being vulnerable, I've got a certain amount of technical knowledge, and I'm passing that on to my juniors. How can I be a better teacher? So there's a way in which to manipulate or to leverage off the joge kanke in a dojo. But unfortunately, if we continue to sort of to go with that without questioning what also could happen, power imbalance, and what it, certain egos and stuff. We've all had people in the dojo who have got an incredibly large ego. We know who those people are. When they get a little bit of authority in the dojo to run trainings or something, the dynamic can be very, very different. And we all know that. Every single one of your viewers now will know a person like that. We don't have to say those names. What's important is that we have we take the time to stop and go, okay, this is a Japanese way of doing things, in the school system and all the rest of it. Does it fit here? Are we okay with that? You know what I mean? And I think it's a really scary conversation sometimes, because we always look to Japan to provide a framework, a structure in the dojo. Is it relevant to our cultural context in New Zealand? It's what perhaps brought people in the door, maybe. And so the answer is not a yes or no sort of a thing. It's it depends. It's constant, but we have to keep revisiting it, is what I'm saying. We can't leave these things unquestioned, because they're massive assumptions that are staying the same, even though the rest of the world and legislation on child safeguarding and expectations of quality instruction and coaching are changing. They're evolving, whereas the traditional structures tend to not evolve, and that's the point. They're traditional, right? So again, coming back to that, we have to reconsider what cultural values and virtues we want to emphasize. They don't always have to be Japanese. I think we owe it to ourselves, in order to evolve, to be a little bit picky and choosy on some of them, eh?
Right. Totally agree. Yeah, totally agree. Yeah. We have one more. I wanted to go over one more question. Min's question. Let's do it quickly, because this is common, very common, and what it is like, all mixed up. Age range. Any advice?
Yeah, heaps. But I'll try and keep it short. So the thing is, in the Western world, normally we have students of all ages mixed up in the same training session. Do you have some advice and coaching in this case? Yeah, there's a lot of ways to skin this cat. And what we sometimes do is, like you say, Min, we just chuck them all in together. And that's okay. That's okay. There's no immediate problem with that. But what we also have to be aware of is that there'll be some seniors in the group that just want to have a bash with a senior, you know, a fellow sandan or something like that. And they can get a little bit frustrated. And that's where it starts to become a little bit dangerous for the lower grades, and not even just the lower ages, but lower grades, right? And they start to hit a little bit hard or whatever. I've seen it all, as we probably all have. So there's some coaching methods that we can use, that we separate them out and make sure that even when the groups are separated out, for example, you have a sandan, like a more senior person, coaching one-on-one with a lower grade, and have lots of groups like that partnered up. All right, they call that a reciprocal coaching method. Okay, so the more knowledgeable person is passing on information in that direction, and you can put the seniors back together at the end to do jigeko. Then you've got the problem of what do I do with the beginners and those sorts of things. What's really important, I think, is that there's a really clear expectation of those senior people on what they can or should be teaching, so that they're clear, right? So you say, okay, well, look, we've got a lot of beginners here today. I'm going, as a coach, I'm going to need all of you guys who are sandan and above to help be my assistant coaches. What we're working on is this, and if you have time, this. All right, very, very clear. This, and maybe this. Go ahead, and I'll give you 30 minutes of training to do that, and then I'll float around as the big head coach, and I'll offer advice, and I'll listen in, and we can go like that. The point is to really get across to the senior members who are being your assistant coaches. This is not detracting from your own training. Yes, I know you want to have a sweat out with the big boys and get back that kote that you lost last week. But this is part of your journey. Our expectations in this club, for example, are that when you get to this level, you will become a coach. You will run Monday night sessions, right? So this is an opportunity for you to coach. And if I can go all the way back to the start of the conversation, if we were to be emphasizing coach or sensei or instructor development as part of our kendo journey at a club level, at a federation level, and even at a world international level, then our seniors potentially would see a lot of value in taking the opportunity to be coaching in a mixed group, you know, the same in the same group, you know, different levels. You know, Min, it's probably not a tidy answer for you because it's just the way it is. You know, often we look at sports like a rugby team or a football team or something like that, and everyone's pretty much on par. They're bloody good at what they do. They don't need to be looked after. They just go ahead and do it. A community club in any sport or any art, it's always going to have a mixed group of people, unless you have enough critical mass to have a dedicated night just for the seniors, right? So it's part of kendo. It should always be part of our kendo that we pass our knowledge forward. Part of my kendo training is passing on my knowledge. Part of my kendo training is becoming a better coach or a better sensei. And the way that I do that is being vulnerable and asking this person that I worked with for half an hour today to give me feedback on what I did well and what I might improve on next time. You know, and if we can build rapport with each other at all those different age groups, level groups throughout the club, the club just gets stronger and stronger. You know, we start to build that rapport. You know, there's always going to be a little bit of conflict, but that's just human nature. But the thing is that if we encourage that expectation, my expectation of my senior members is for them to contribute to the development of others, because that in turn, if I'm open to the feedback, will make me better. You know what I mean? And it's really important that keeps going. And I'll give you one more example. I know I said I'd try and keep it short, but when you here's something that you can do, Min, if you're still with us, is when you're doing jigeko with a lower grade, right? Let's assume that person has bogu on. Here's a challenge for you guys, right? Consider this. When you're doing jigeko as the senior person and you want that, you see a thing, you say, okay, he's got a really stiff right arm, and it's like this, you know. What can I do through my own keiko, right, through my own movements and my own openings and my own seme? How can I get that person to realize that they've got a stiff right arm? So my challenge is, how do you zip your lips? Don't say anything. Don't give the feedback. Just don't think about a pink elephant. Think about a blue elephant. Forget about that, right? Shut up. And try to show them what they can do differently through your seme. Why would you do that? The thing is, when you get the higher and higher levels, right, that conversation is always happening, right? I fight Hiro sensei, right? And I go, oh, okay, I know Hiro's got a wicked tsuki, right? So what I want to do is I want to try and bring him in for tsuki so I can try that kata sanbonme and do this thing, right? But we're trying to bring that person in to strike us, right? We're trying to, come on, strike my kote, strike it so I can do aikote men. We're not talking to each other. We're trying to communicate that through our seme. Why don't we try that with our beginners? And the reason that we should do that is because it develops our own kendo at the same time as teaching someone that they've got a stiff right arm or whatever the thing is that we've noticed, right? We rely on feedback, verbal feedback, brilliant, absolutely, 100%. But we spend a lot of time talking like I'm doing now, but how can we teach people through, you know, even at that lower grade, on something that they could or should be doing? And that becomes, the reason I'm pitching this idea is because it becomes a challenge for us as a senior to influence the person standing in front of us to do what we want them to do so that we can do what we want to do. Right? And we do that inherently in Jigeko with the seniors, with our fellow seniors and with our sensei. And we talk about it afterwards over a beer. But we don't do that with the beginners. But it's an absolute opportunity. So we mixed up and we're all doing all sorts of different stuff, and we've got a shodan with a yondan. Why doesn't the yondan go, okay, I know this person has a bad habit of X, Y, and Z, right? I'm going to try and exploit that, and hopefully they'll learn in that moment. If they don't, we talk about it afterwards, no problem. But shut your lips, try and influence them that way and say, hey, you know, when I pushed against your shinai this way, what did you do? Oh, I did this. Exactly, right? So I've helped him or her learn in that moment through the process of keiko about what their habits are or aren't or whatever, you know? So it doesn't have to be this teaching all the time. Right. Yeah, you can learn about your own. You can develop your skills of influence with that junior person as well. I don't know, man, if that answers your question, mate, but yeah, definitely worth a try, I reckon.
Yeah, I reckon too. Yeah, so that's an important part of Kendo. Shut up, you know, through Jigeko, you're learning as well. When you get hit, I'm like, why did I get hit? What did I do? You know, that kind of mindset is very important. So it's not like, oh, if you just stop there, oh, I got hit, yeah, and then you don't really learn anything. You're just losing the opportunity to. I mean, that's fine. You know, it's a good, yeah, I gotcha, it's fine. But I think you got to remember, what did I do there? Most of the time, you don't really know what you did. So I think it's a very important suggestion, and I think it's very useful too, Min. What do you think? Oh, thanks for your great explanation. Yeah, that's what he said. Great.
My pleasure, man.
And that was
glad you're still here.
I think that those guys who are here right now, you guys will be, you know, kicking asses. Can I say that in public? Yeah, asses. Yeah, why not? Being in the US, man, I'm so sensitive. Yeah, all right, man. Yeah, it's 6:15, and then I don't think I'm gonna go to the Alex virtual keiko anymore. Anyway, that's okay. Yeah. All right. So I think it was. I hope I can do that again. I'm sure a lot of people liked it. All right. If you liked it, please don't forget hit the what button? Like button. like button. So we know you liked it. That's the only way we can know you liked it. And then leave comments. And I am going to
Hiro, can your viewers please can they do me a favor?
Yeah.
One thing that Hiro and I did well, and one thing that we might want to improve on next time.
Yeah.
One thing we did well, and one thing we can improve on. Challenge with you.
I don't know. Be
vulnerable. We're vulnerable. yeah, it's scary, man.
Yeah. Don't say I should improve my English, okay? Not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. All right. Thank you guys for being here with us, and thanks, Blake, Bennett Sensei. That was great, man. I learned a lot, and I hope my students are gonna come to me and invite me with that kind of stuff. But yeah, that was great, man. That's great. Thank you very much. And hopefully I can do that next week, because luckily my work said I don't have to come back until May 11. So hopefully I can do that with you again, eh?
No worries, mate. Anytime. Let's do something regular, eh? And a little bit shorter, so that people have they're gonna go to training. Go to training.
If you have to go to the virtual training, go virtual training.
Don't blame me and Hiro for that, eh, Alex?
Yeah, don't tell. Yeah. I'm sure he's gonna say something about this, but anyway. All right, thanks, guys, and then I'll hopefully see you guys again, and then make sure leave you what is it? What we can do better.
What we did well, and what we can improve on. Yeah.
What we did well and what we can improve on for the next session, so you will have better broadcasting. All right. Thanks, Blakey.
Sweet, man.
All right, and I'm going to end this broadcast. Thanks a lot, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.